Good morning, everybody. How are you all? My name is Nina Siddiqui, and today I'm going to be giving you a lecture on schizophrenia. This is part of the A2 syllabus, and if you have taken abnormality in the A2 specialist choices, this topic is going to help you understand the disorder of schizophrenia better according to the syllabus outlined by the CAIE. I am a CAIE certified teacher to teach the syllabus 9990, and I give private tuitions as well. If you feel that you need some specialized assistance from me, then do feel free to contact me. And my email is there in the information of the channel. So let's begin with the lesson today. Everybody is familiar with the disorder schizophrenia a lot. The name is pretty common, and so let's see what it's about. Okay, so first of all, right, we began this topic by looking at this artwork by this schizophrenic artist. He is one of the very popular schizophrenic artists. Um, and you can see that how creative and how um, amazing this artwork is. Just let me put the slide sharing on, and then we will begin with the topic. Until if you have any um, queries, if you have any questions about the topic about the past papers, feel free to contact me. Write down in the comments below, and I will cater to them. Okay, so the artwork by schizophrenics, you can see some more. This is a movie which is very popular. It's called The Beautiful Mind. It's a movie of Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe is a very famous artist, and this movie has won a lot of awards. And it's a beautiful movie, and I recommend all students of psychology that you must watch this movie. If you are a student of psychology, you have to know about this movie. Of all of the movies which are out there, this is one must movie to watch, and believe me that you're not going to regret any minute of it, because it's so beautiful how the talented genius um, um, professor actually is a schizophrenia. He develops schizophrenia, and then how he copes with his life and how his life turns around after the disorder. So, what does the word schizophrenia means? First of all, right, to begin with, it's called schizo means splitting, and phrenia means mind. So it's splitting of the mind. And but there's a problem with this name. First of all, it is not that the mind has split as such, but the reality is distorted. It's not the same reality as everybody else has. So it's basically defined as a psychotic disorder in which personal, social, and occupational functioning deteriorates as a result of strange perceptions, disturbed thought processes, and unusual emotions and motor abnormalities. So there's so much. It is such a comprehensive disorder. So there is disintegration of the process of thinking and emotional responsiveness. So there's a lot in this disorder. So, what is schizophrenia, schizophrenic and psychotic disorders? Psychotic disorders involves a major break from reality. So, if there's a split from reality in which the individual perceives their world in a way that is very different from how others perceive it. And schizophrenia is a particularly severe type of psychotic disorder that affects all aspects of a person's thinking, emotions, and actions. So characteristics of schizophrenia spectrum disorder and psychotic disorders. The disorders share some common symptoms. If you look at the schizophrenia spectrum, it refers to several different but similar disorders which vary in their duration and severity. So now, if you look at the DSM-4, it had subtypes of schizophrenia, but now the DSM doesn't talk about subtypes, it talks about the spectrum. And in the spectrum, as I told you, that there are a similar type of disorders, and the only difference by which you have to remember it is that they differ in duration and they differ in severity. And that's how you're going to look at all of these psychotic disorders which are come under this whole spectrum. So what about schizophrenia's onset? Schizophrenia basically, it is, if you can look at this graph, you can see that it is more prevalent in males, and it starts in early 20s in males and late 20s in females. But it is more prevalent in males, and it approximately 1% of the population has the disorder. That means 1 in 100 people may develop schizophrenia, has a likelihood of developing it, or is predisposed to, or is vulnerable to the disorder. The current diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders, that is DSM-5, defines schizophrenic spectrum and psychotic disorders as sharing one or more of the following. The first four are sometimes called the positive symptoms. Okay, so now what are, remember that this is a very important criteria. You've got to understand that the first four are positive symptoms, and positive doesn't mean it is anything positive about it, but it means something which is added to the reality. Just like in, the positive sign, just remember the plus sign in which you add something to the reality. So there are distortions to the reality which have been added by the person, and there's some excesses to the reality which have been added. So these excesses and distortions constitute, first of all, delusions. So what are delusions? First of all, you've got to understand that. So delusions are basically beliefs individuals hold which are not based on reality. Okay, so for example, if a delusion would be, for you may be falsely believing that other people are trying to harm or kill you. That is a delusion of persecution. We will go into delusion a little bit more. What are the various types of delusions? But briefly, right now, I want you to just remember the criteria. Just have an idea of what the criteria is like. First of all, you have to have, from the positive symptoms, remember there's first one is delusions. The second one is hallucinations. This is also something added to the environment which was not there. So a sensory experience which is added to the environment which is not there. So seeing things which are not there, hearing things which are not there, hearing voices, all of these are called hallucinations, and they're sensory hallucinations. Okay, and then there is disorganized thoughts. Thoughts may be mixed up and racing. So, a lot of times if you look at schizophrenics, they are so confused. Their thoughts are all over the place. It's like a word salad that when they talk, you can't make sense of what they are saying. And the speech is often jumbled up. So there's a lot in this disorder, and the reality is very, very hard for them. So now this is what you have to remember, that delusions, false beliefs, and hallucinations, false sensory information. Okay, there is types of hallucinations. So let's look at the types of hallucinations. Sometimes it's the voices that you hear. Sometimes you can see things also. And now let's talk about the negative symptoms. So the negative symptoms, right, constitute various types of negative symptoms, and we're going to take each one of them individually. So first of all, right, first negative symptoms are, you can also remember negative symptoms like behavioral deficits. That's another keyword for you to note down. So whenever you talk about negative symptoms, they are deficits in behavior. That means something is going wrong in the behavior, which is unusual about the behavior. So first unusualness about the behavior, that is something which is taken away from normal behavior. Okay, that's why it's called negative symptom. So it's taken away from normal behavior is is pleasure. So what is, sorry, this is motivation. So ovulation means apathy, or it refers to lack of energy, or seemingly absence of interest in or an inability to persist in what are usually routine activities. So these people as schizophrenics, the common routine activities also, they don't have the energy for it. They lack their energy is completely sapped out. It seems as if they have got no energy left in their in themselves. And patients may become inattentive to grooming, is so much so that they may not take care of their personal hygiene. They may not comb their hair. Their nails will be dirty. You will see that their teeth will not be brushed, and they will have clothes which will be disheveled. And so these are all of the things, when you look at these kind of very dirty people out on the street also, the first safe assumption is that it might be a schizophrenic. Going around the streets. And this is a common sight in my part of the country, but it may not be the case everywhere around the world. But this is what is one other key criteria to identify schizophrenics. That means they have very less energy to do anything, and they have difficulty persisting at work, at school, at house chores. So little things they cannot do. It's an ordeal for them to do the basic chores of everyday life as well. And they may just spend time sitting around doing nothing. The next negative symptom is called a logia. Okay, and what is a logia? Logia is basically is a negative thought disorder. A logia can have several forms. It's called poverty of speech. Okay, so what do you understand by poverty of speech? It means that sheer amount of speech is greatly reduced. So that means, they will speak very less. And poverty of content of speech also. Amount of discourse is inadequate, but it conveys little information and tends to be vague and repetitive. They might repeat things also, but they may also be vague. It will be not easy for you to understand what they are saying. And this is basically an example of logia, and you can pause the video and you can read it yourself, that what they are talking about. Their speech is not going to make sense, and it's going to be absolutely all over the place. Then anhedonia. What is anhedonia? Anhedonia is the inability to experience pleasure. Okay, and it is manifested as a lack of interest in recreational activities, failure to develop close relationships with other people, and lack of interest in sex. The patients are aware of this symptom, and they report that they are usually considered, the things that they, usually considered to be pleasurable, or other people might consider these two things to be pleasurable, they don't enjoy them. So the basic, things which brings pleasure to normal people will not bring pleasure to them. So that is anhedonia. Flat affect. Flat affect refers to what? In patients with flat affect, virtually no stimulus can elicit an emotional response. So the patient may stare vacantly, the muscles of the face flaccid, and the eyes lifeless. When spoken to, the patient answers in a flat and toneless voice. And the flat effect was found in 66% of the large sample of patients with schizophrenia. So you will see that they will have a poker face kind of thing. And this is a very funny example of flat effect. This is one of the characters in the movies. And, where he does not have any other face other than the one which is shown in the picture. For every emotion, he has the same face, and which is expressionless. So you will see that these, if you look at schizophrenics, their expressions are going to be lacking, so much so that there'll be no expression whatsoever for any feeling at all. Then there is asociality. What does asociality mean? It means that some patients have severe impairments in social relationships. Okay, and they have few friends, they have poor social skills, they have little interest in being with other people. And these manifestations of schizophrenia are often the first to appear. Remember that, beginning in childhood before the onset of more psychotic symptoms. So this is basically, a kind of a alarm bell for you to remember that this may be happening if you see that there is a lot of issues with regard to social relationships. Bizarre behavior takes many forms. Patients may fly into inexplicable drags or bouts of agitation, dress in unusual clothes, act in childlike or silly manner, hoard food, collect garbage, engage in sexually inappropriate behavior such as masturbating in public. They may seem to lose the ability to organize their behavior and make it conform to conformity of standards. So, this will be very difficult for them to stick to the norms and the norms of the society, or whatever the rules of the society are. And they also have difficulty performing the task of everyday living. So this constitutes the bizarre behavior part of it. Now you can see some images of schizophrenics over here. And so when we talk about thoughts, when they talk about thoughts, they believe that there are a lot of beliefs with regard to thoughts. Okay, and sometimes they believe that the thoughts are not their own, and they are coming from an external source. Or sometimes they may believe that the thoughts are broadcast. Their thoughts are being broadcasted and transmitted so that others know what they are thinking. Or sometimes the patients may think that their thoughts are being stolen from them suddenly or unexpectedly by an external force. Or some patients may believe that their feelings or behaviors are controlled by an external force. So they may think that there is an alien force or something like that which is controlling them. So sometimes you will see all these kind of thoughts also going on in their head. So this is part of disorganized thoughts. Examples of disorganized thoughts. This is one example of disorganized thought. And the thoughts will be all over the place. I'm not going to read this excerpt. You're going to just pause the video and read it yourself, okay? And you'll get the idea as to how their thought is disorganized. Catatonic behavior. What is catatonic behavior? Catatonia basically refers to a motor disorder, okay? And it is the person may not react to things in the environment and remain rigid and unmoving in awkward poses or engage in constantly repetitive movements, seeming to be purposeful for them. So like you can see this image of a woman, how she is sitting in such an uncomfortable, posture, and they may sit for like this or take up any posture, and which may be very uncomfortable also, like standing on one leg, or they will be very, very flexible. You will see them that they will be performing, gymnastic like things and maintaining, and they will maintain it for long periods of time. So common catatonic behavior is rigidity. Sometimes it's rigidity also, sometimes performing strange movements, sometimes staying in uncomfortable positions for a very long time, erratic or extreme movements. Okay, inappropriate effect. What is that? Inappropriate effect means that some patients' emotional responses are out of context of the patient, or out of context. That means the patient may laugh on hearing that his or her mother has just died. So they may laugh at something which is sad. So their emotions are going to be totally inappropriate, totally, not in line with what generally an emotional response must be. And they become enraged when asked a simple question about how a new garment fits. So ordinary things may put them in rage, and they may become angry and flared up, out of nowhere, and you would be thinking that what's wrong with them. So that is something which is not normal emotions, or normal emotional response. And it is also out of context. Remember that, okay? Laughing when you're supposed to be sad, and being sad maybe when you're supposed to laugh. It could be the other way around as well. So the patients are likely to shift rapidly from one emotional state to another with no discernible reason. And although this symptom is quite rare because it is relatively specific to schizophrenia. Okay, and these are some of the images that you can see from the movie The Beautiful Mind, in which you can see that how this person is having some delusions of persecution and delusions of that somebody is following him, the Russians are following him, and they are after him. All the time he had these thoughts in his mind. Um, Main types of schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders. So when you're going to look at in your syllabus book also, there is a whole table of the different type of psychotic disorders which fall under schizophrenic spectrum disorder. And first, I'll just read it out to you. They may sound kind of kind of overwhelming at but just remember the names, and don't get overwhelmed by the terms, but just try to remember as many as you can remember under the spectrum. And the one which you are supposed to know more about is schizophrenia. Okay. So what is first is schizotypal personality disorder, then delusional disorder, brief psychotic disorder, schizoform disorder, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, substance medication induced psychotic disorder due to another medical condition, catatonia, or unspecified. So this is basically a mouthful. And let's take a moment of a pause, and let's resume again. Okay. Sometimes, what happens is that schizophrenia is also induced by certain drugs like alcohol, or illegal substances may also induce, right, psychotic episodes. But that is not schizophrenia. That is schizophrenia or psychosis which have been induced by certain drugs. For example, there are some drugs which create hallucinations or delusions. Okay. And keywords that you've got to remember is that they vary in duration and severity. And what do you understand by duration and severity? Just read these definitions. You're supposed to know them clearly. Okay, now the most well-known disorder, right, is schizophrenia. So at least for 6 months, remember that those with the disorder must show at least one of the following symptoms, okay, and for at least 6 months. Now, the new diagnostic criteria says, according to DSM-5, 2 or more of the following may be present for a significant portion of the time during 1 month period or less. Okay, and at least one of these must be there. So one of these, that means delusions or hallucinations or disorganized speech or negative symptoms. One of these, right, must be there. In part 1. Okay, and then there is part B of it also, and part 3, part C, and part D, and part E and F. But you have to remember that from part A, at least one must be there. So that is a must for, and the period is for 1 month at least. Now, these are some of the case studies. Often you are asked, a short question comes of a 6-mark or a 5-mark question, which asks you to define or describe a case study of schizophrenia. And for that, these are, I think, ideal short case studies. And you can pause the video and go through these different case studies and just try to memorize one of them. Okay, the one which is in your book is of Conrad, who's a male, age 23. Conrad had the first psychotic episode whilst on holiday when he was 22 years old, and was later diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. And at first he was reluctant to seek treatment, and he was unsure that he would recover. and subsequently he spent months following his diagnosis in a psychiatric hospital. Through trial and error, Conrad has found the right drug treatment, though maintaining the healthy weight remains a challenge. Remember that these psychotic drugs, when I'm going to go into the treatments of schizophrenia, then you will see that what every treatment has got some issues. And one of the issues with the treatments or the drug treatment is that there's a lot of weight gain as a side effect of these medications. Schizophrenia and delusional disorders. So what do you understand by delusional disorder? Delusional disorder is a disorder characterized by persistent delusions, but people suffering from it otherwise have quite normal behavior. So delusions is a key characteristics which is coming forth, and which is like kind of out there as a major symptom. Okay, and this is the criteria for delusional disorder. There are various types of delusions which are there, and the book requires you to know a few of them. So, for example, there is erotomanic, which means a belief that other person is in love with them. Grandiose. The delusion of grandiosity is when they are convinced that they have a great unrecognized skill or status. That means they might think that they are Jesus or some, they are some gifted individuals. Gifted in the sense that having superpowers also at times. And then jealous, that means believe that the partner is being unfaithful. This is called the delusion of jealousy. And then there's delusion of persecution, and this is a very common one. Believe that a person is being conspired against or pursued by others who intend to harm them or even kill them. So you can see over here, persecutory type is that people are trying to poison me. If they might be saying such things. In grandiose type, they may think that I'm the chosen one. And the jealous type is that you are all the time jealous of your spouse. Somato type is also there. The person may think a body part is malfunctioning. And erotomanic is when you think that someone is in love with you, despite evidence there is there to the contrary, but you would not understand. Okay, so I'm going to skip a couple of slides here. Because I don't think that this will be part of the whole thing. And I think for now on, this is enough for you all to remember for this class. This is enough. And in the next section, in the next lesson, I'm going to talk about in the next section, I'm going to talk about what are the various causes of schizophrenia, and also what are the treatments of schizophrenia, right? You're supposed to know that also as part of the syllabus. So if there are any questions, there's any confusion, do let me know, and in the comments below, and do share and like and subscribe to my channel, and I will inshallah I hopefully see you very soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.